Hello my Land Cruiser brethren. So today's video is for my TLC brand, TLC4x4.com. We specialize solely in vintage Toyota Land Cruisers. Now today's a little bit different though, because traditionally with that brand, what I do is hunt the world for really nice examples. Actually, I stay in the US, but whatever, such as this truck. However, we are just overwhelmed. We have so many full restoration and service clients at TLC that I just don't have time to dial this truck in, do all the service work that we identify, and sell it for a premium. So today we're going to offer up a truck in as-is condition, and I'm going to provide you with the massive inspection results that we do to determine what service work we feel we need to do, what's called a stage one, to make a truck really good to go. You know, because people love these trucks, but the reality is they have such a reputation for being bulletproof that people fix what breaks, and if you're lucky, change the fluids once in a while, and that's it. They just keep driving them. So when they become 30 plus years old, we feel it's time to stop, comb through the truck, identify all the needs, and bring everything back to OEM spec and tolerances. That being said, this truck has an excellent track record and it's been performing wonderfully and it's been quite reliable. So the story is, I bought this truck from a good friend who's a serial Land Cruiser owner up in Santa Barbara. He found this truck, he beat me to it, and it's in amazing condition for an unrestored truck. It's 100% original paint, upholstery, trim, interior. There are no cracks on the dash. The upholstery is arguably one of the nicest I've seen at any mileage. Headliner's good. The visors are getting a little saggy, which is typical. Carpet's all good. It's in really nice shape, and you can tell somebody really cared for it. It shows. It's a 1990, which is super rare because that's the very end of production for these. They made these 88 and 89, and then in 90 they held back a couple thousand 89s because they didn't have the new 80 series ready. So the production date on this one is 11 of 89, which means you get all the toys, bells, whistles, and gizmos, although there aren't that many. You get the headrests and the 3-point belts in the second row. You get power mirrors, power windows, and power door locks. This truck retains all stock mechanical equipment. It's the 4.0 inline 6, fuel injected, yay, way better than the stick shift version, the FJ60, you know, with the round headlights, because they didn't have a fifth gear, which was asinine. Now, granted, an ideal 62 would have a manual trans, and you can convert one to manual, but all 62s stock came with the automatic. But the good news is it's an overdrive. Probably the best news though is this motor. Shorter stroke, more torque, more power, and even with the thirsty automatic, you feel the difference. The other thing is you have isolated intake and exhaust manifolds, and you have fuel injection. Personally, I hate carburetors. So that negates so much service I can't even begin to tell you. You know, we look at service files for FJ62 versus 60 clients, and over a same period of time, the FJ60 client file's that thick, 62 is that thick. So that's a hell of an indicator. Sounding a little redundant if you watch the last 62 video, but so be it. Now let's talk about this truck. Factory white paint, gray interior. Truck only has 168,420 some miles on it. It drives wonderful. There are no issues apparent. Now that being said, I'll take you through all the details of what we found, but there's one that's really notable, which stopped us dead in our tracks. We found evidence of a crack in the block that has been JB welded and repaired. Now, for me to stand behind it as a service truck we've gone through, that can't fly. I got to pull the motor, find another short block, fully rebuild the motor, blah, blah, blah. But that's kind of silly because this truck has been like that for at least 17,000 miles with no issues whatsoever. That repair is holding just fine. I've seen trucks with that problem and they go on indefinitely. Okay, there was good brake performance found. It could use an alignment. The speedometer is a little bit jumpy, probably just needs a lube. The AC kind of tepid at best, so count on a recharge there at least. Engine compression, quite impressive. Cylinders 1 through 6 in order: 165, 165, 165, 165, 160, and 165. There was no water in the oil found. There are no manifold or vacuum leaks. There's no smoking, no noted consumption. All the engine vacuum lines are all still factory original. Personally, I like to upgrade those to the silicone lines, but that's up to you. Pretty much all the gaskets, from what I can tell, are original. So your side cover gasket is seeping, your valve cover gasket is seeping, which is kind of normal. We'd recommend a valve adjustment and a valve cover gasket, but there's no top-end noise or anything. Oil pan gasket is also noted as seeping. Let's see what else. Spark plugs are kind of old. Spark plug wires are actually original, so probably a tune-up, replacing those at minimum, would be a good recommendation. There's no engine codes. The check engine light is not on. The throttle position sensor is working properly. Throttle body, yeah, I'd say it could stand for a cleaning. Fuel hoses are still original, something I'd recommend changing. While you're at it, you should do the fuel filter, air filter too. But again, it's all working. I'd also recommend a PCV valve and PCV vacuum hose, but again, they're working, they're just a little crunchy. Same with the charcoal canister elbow. Let's see what else. Gas cap, the rubber on it's a little worn out. You might want to redo that. Catalytic converter, the truck passes California smog, but you can notice on the external housing of the cat, it is corroded, as well as the rest of the exhaust system. Again, smog legal, not making any stupid sounds through the exhaust nor rattles, but we would have geeked out and done that. Radiator looks a little bit old. The system does hold pressure, but I'd probably want to pull that radiator to minimum and check it out. Probably do a water pump and thermostat while you're in there, radiator cap too. While you're doing that, probably be a good idea to do all the belts. Again, they're all working, but I mean, we're pretty anal. Heater hoses, the rear heater hoses are also original. I'd recommend replacing those. It's just sort of standard operation. The AC compressor does fire up and is not frozen, but again, as I said, does not blow cold. Let's see what else. We evened out and corrected the fluid levels in the transmission and the transfer case. In the transfer case, the output shaft seals are seeping. The sender switches for the four-wheel drive sensor is seeping. The actual physical shifter, the bushings are a little bit sloppy, and the push button to engage each gear needs to be inspected and lubricated. Right now, it's frozen. Front axle appears to be in great shape, although I don't think anyone's ever done the knuckle seals. So I don't know, I'd go through the front axle and do the burr fields and pinion seals and diff gaskets, stuff like that. But again, no odd noises, no issues evident there beyond some leaks. Rear diff's happy. Again, we corrected the fluid on it. It's in good condition, level is proper. No cover gasket, pinion seal, or wheel bearing wear noted. Moving on to the body, yeah, there's a couple dents and bruises here and there, but obviously nothing of note. The rear license plate light assembly, the chrome has failed and that's corroded a bit, so I'd recommend a new one. Drive shaft, no odd sounds, but I would recommend new U-joints and balancing because that is original. Brake master cylinder, just kind of tired and old. I'd probably go through it. Calipers are not leaking, but again, original. It's probably high time to do them. Wheel cylinders are seeping a wee bit, but brake pressure is appropriate. If you did those, you should go ahead and do the short parking brake cables in that rear brake assembly and the rear hardware. Steel lines, kind of old, a little crusty. Rubber hoses, all original. I'd recommend replacing those with new. Brake percentage, front is 80% on the left, for some reason 50% on the right. The rear is consistent at 80%, and that is referring to remaining brake pad and shoe material. The front rotors are still above minimum at 19.89 on the left, 19.76 on the right. The drums are at 294 and 296. Leaf springs, suspension bushings, shocks, sway bar bushings, they're all original. I don't know, I like to just put on Old Man Emu versus bothering to service those, but that's up to you. Tie rod ends, a little bit sloppy. They steer fine, but they're original. Same with the steering stabilizer. Power steering return hose could use a gasket. Tires have decent, plenty of wear left there. They're all the same brand. They appear to be fairly recent. The factory rims are in exceptionally good condition. And what else? The rear wiper arm is missing. The front arms are kind of cruddy looking. We replaced a couple bulbs. The power antenna is not functioning. The power windows, the master door switch, the passenger front switch is missing, therefore not working. All other windows work from the doors and from the master switch. All gauges are functioning correct except for the sway and the odometer, but it's pretty minor. 2 original keys, original owner's manual. It's missing the lug wrench, although the toolkit is there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's a pretty anal and arguably very comprehensive inspection. So at your leisure, you could do any and all of what I just listed. But again, to reiterate, the car doesn't really need it right now. The truck doesn't really need it right now. Runs and drives well, has a very good track record of service. The engine compression on this truck, still factory perfect. No overheating, no fluid seeping other than out of plenty of gaskets. So it's good to go. And I'm gonna sell this truck cheap because of that problem. That's sort of my problem, but what are you gonna do, right? It is what it is. I just had to give you full disclosure and let you know that that is a concern. So it's a truck though that I would trust. I'd drive it across country right now. So it's something that perhaps you can just buy and enjoy and put that on the schedule for a restoration at a later date. In fact, we'd perfectly welcome it back for a restoration with us. Absolutely no problem. Zero rust on the body, super clean undercarriage. There's not even any creepage in the A-pillar seam, which is like the very first spot you'll see, at least on the West Coast. It seems our FJ62s start to rust from the top down versus the East Coast trucks obviously rust from the bottom up. So no rust on either areas, and really it's an ideal restoration core. In fact, an ideal V8 resto mod core. And you know what, I was gonna put it in the Horde and do that, but we're like 2 years out plus on restorations, so I don't know, it's kind of pointless. So here it is. I offer it up with full disclaimer, but with full confidence as well. If you have any questions, please go to the website. There's tons of details. That's TLC4x4.com. Call us, 818-280-3330. And as always, thank you for taking the time to watch our videos. I hope you have a great day. See you.